Hi guys, welcome to this week's episode of Global News Review. My name is Ola, and basically every Saturday 9 a.m. GMT plus 1, we talk about global, African, and Nigerian news and how it affects your pocket and what you should be doing or positioning yourself in respect to that news, right? So let's get with it. First of all, just in case you don't know, these sessions are powered by the Money With Club. Yay! The Money With Club is a community of working professionals and business owners who are putting their finances in order, securing their financial future through education. Like if you don't know what you're supposed to be doing, on what side, and profitable investments, investment opportunities, basically. So, yes, let's get with it. So, every week we talk about global news. Now, today we'll be highlighting from the US. The president of the United States signed a law that basically puts in place some tighter structure around stable coins globally. I dare say globally because America is the country of the world, right? So it's called the Genius Act. And basically, what does this Genius Act say? It says that for you to establish a stable coin. So if you know what stable coins are, it's like USDC where it's backed by the dollar, right? So people create these coins. And so instead of you trading the dollar directly, you can trade those coins, stable coins. That's why they're called stable coins, but because they are backed by the dollar or backed by a currency, right? So what the president signed into law is basically saying that for you to set up a or create a stable coin, number one, you should be a regulated or licensed entity. Number two, it must be backed one for one by either the dollar or US treasuries. Right now, this is like the highlight of the act, right? But what does this mean? So basically what this is saying is that cryptocurrency, digital currency in whatever shape or form is becoming more mainstream than ever before. So if you've been averse, right, this is your wake up call to actually sit down and start looking at it. Why? Because the world is changing right before your eyes. Think about the guys that were there when there was trade by barter. I mean, I started moving to gold. See, you can see that. Oh, will we really use gold? Can we really use gold? Do you understand? That's literally what's happening. Or when they move from gold to paper money, right? Backed by reserves, right? You so we're in the middle of that transition. That's literally what's happening here. 50 years down the line, some people would say that, oh, there was money that you had to carry paper. Really? How did that? That's literally what's happening before our eyes, right? Especially if I'm a millennial, I can relate. Life is just changing in so many ways. You see so many things like which kind wahala be this? But yes, why am I highlighting this? Because cryptocurrency in whatever shape or form is evolving, is becoming a matured um child. Maybe it's becoming a teenager, getting towards 18-ish, if you get what I mean. Or maybe no, it's like getting towards a 14-year-old, 15-year-old. You're not quite there as an adult, but you are on the way. That's literally what's happening with cryptocurrency and the entire space. As more regulation comes, they'll it's be embraced by more and more people. Now, who are the people that will benefit from this? The people that will benefit from this, first of all, are like the Coinbase. Coinbase is like a crypto exchange. Those ones that were already established and licensed entities, they are the ones that will benefit from this. Why? Because it legislates what they're already doing. So before it was like a gray area. Now they're like, okay, we have a right to do this. But then the people that will struggle are those that would have just created their stable coin with no backing. We can't trace you, blah, blah, blah. And keep going. Like you get, just do it. But now, as a reasonable investor, reasonable trader, reasonable anybody, you would go for the stable coins of licensed entities. Why? There's more regulation. They are more likely to do what they're supposed to do. You understand? Another set of people that might get caught in this, ironically, are the Mastercards and the Visas of this world, right? Because the more and more stable coins become a thing, then there's less need for your card. Yeah. Why? Because everybody's already on that currency. Do you get? Everybody's already on USDC and they move on. Do you get? So why do I need to have that? I can just transfer to you. The way everybody does daily right now, right? Is that kind of thing. So they would also have to figure out how they're going to evolve in this journey because they could actually eventually be like those adults that still carry $100 notes around, elderly people, they just want cash. That's how you might be if you're holding an ATM card in a couple of years, right? If they don't evolve or find a way to sink all this into their MO, if you get what I mean. So, yeah, food for thought. If you are not yet inclined towards adjusting, especially if you're like in your 30s, 40s, where all things being equal, you have 40, 50 years, 60 years left on this earth, a lot of things are going to change. So, better get your mind into it as quickly as possible. Yeah. Then on the African side of things, okay, before we talk about the African side of things, I would like you to let you know that we have a summer camp coming up on the 13th to 15th of August, right? It's for 16 to 21-year olds. It is virtual. Let me see if I can find the flyer or something. I'm not sure that I can if it's set up here, right? It's virtual and it's basically for 16 to 21-year olds. It's Bible based, it's faith based, right? So it's for you if you want your child to understand the why of money. Now, let me even talk about why I'm doing that. Because there's a way that money can become so flimsy, especially when you make it, right? And with money now comes depression. That's hollow thing, right? And the way to fix that is to have some sense of value beyond you when it comes to money. And so we are laying that foundation. This is how to make money. This is how to manage your money. This is how to multiply your money all under God in a way that you actually know that you are growing both mentally and financially, right? That's one. Now, in terms of what to expect, of course, like quizzes, gamification, presentations, blah, blah, blah. But the thing that I'm really excited about are like the breakout sessions. For example, on day one, we're talking about making money. We are going to get people that are successful in their careers, a creative, an entrepreneur to just talk about, and it's be breakouts. Depending on where you think your life is going, you can split it to any of those, right? And you would learn, you would ask questions, right? Because we're talking about making money. Then we'll talk about managing money. We'll talk about life balance, mental health, blah, blah, blah. And we bring experts from this. And identity is a thing. Why? Because a lot of times oh, for example, in Nigeria, you don't really care for this fabric and this wedding, but social pressure, I must bring out that 600K to buy the asho, make the gele, blah, 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 blah. And that sense of identity does not allow you to say no. Those are the things that make your money disappear, if you get what I mean. So, like, that's day two. And then day three, talk about multiplying money, and we talk about trading versus investing, assets of the future, cryptocurrency. I bring the crypto expert to come and talk about it. Why? Because these are the things that people in their 16 to 21 years age bracket are talking about. And I realize that as people of faith, we don't talk about money enough in a way where we can be proper examples. We don't, because we shy away from it if it's from a humility perspective. And so we are talking about it. Yeah. So if you have someone in that age bracket, please sign them up. Oh, I forgot. There's like a flash sale, 60% of that ends tomorrow evening, tomorrow being Sunday, the 27th. So by Monday, the 28th, that discount will be off, 60% off. I'll see if I can let me see if I can drop the link in the chat, right? As we go along, but just know that it's happening, it's coming. Don't miss it out. Yep. And then let's move on. I'll drop the link shortly. Let's move on to African news. So African news, I was very excited about this, right? Because there has been so much happening in the African creative space. Now, if you don't know, Netflix has pulled back on buying productions as they used to. So if it started with Amazon, then Netflix also followed suit. Now, what's the issue? The issue is, for example, the Nigerian currency, right? Abroad, you would charge maybe subscriptions of $12 a month. $12 in Nigeria is like 20K, right? How many people will pay 20K for Netflix every month? So Netflix comes to Nigeria and then is discounted. Now, on top of that discount, let's say that discount brought them to like a $6. Because of currency devaluation, it brings them down to like a $3 a month. The math is not mathing. And even at that $3, they are not even able to scale because people can share the ID with like 5 people because, yes, we are communal in our dealings, right? So the math really, really is not mathing. right? Now, on one side. On the other side, so many people have gone into the creative industry. So many people have their own idea of why they are the best things in sliced bread, right? And it's valid, but there is so much supply and there's very little demand. So what is happening is that it's really tough to monetize in the creative space right now. And I mean, it's something that we are seeing because we've invested in creatives in the past. We've seen how the income has shrunk in the past 2 to 5 years, right? 2 to 3 to 4 5 years ish, right? Actually, right? So what are we talking about here? This lady, Kemi Aditiba, she came out and she has just hit the waves, bang, bang, bang. What am I highlighting here? See, there's always opportunity, right? There's positioning, there's like Kemi Aditiba is now a brand. It's no longer beyond, oh, she did a movie, but it's like, oh, it's Kemi, let's see what she's doing. And she's still able to get that deal or sell that product and make such a wave, even in the midst of everything. Now, what am I highlighting from an investor perspective? If you are looking at creatives, um whilst it is still viable, you have to thread carefully, right? Especially if they use past numbers, those past numbers, and it's standard with investing. Past performance is not a predictor of future gain. I will tell you for free that it's not, right? So don't say that, oh, they made this money in the past, therefore look at the terrain. The terrain has changed significantly in the past 1 year, especially with the exit of Netflix. Now, even from the information or even hearing, it's even more like Netflix is not even selling like before. They would buy your movie and they can sell it to Netflix Global. Now they are trying to make sure that Africa is bankable on its own, meaning that the money you are putting into Africa, you must get it back, right? As against Africa leaning on, oh, there are people around the world that will want to watch our movies, if you get what I mean. So it's the change. There's been a change, right? So be careful if you are going into creative investments, and also doesn't also mean, hi Jadesco, thank you, doesn't also mean that it's not viable, right? But you have to shine your eyes and follow who know road. Yeah. And then final news is from Nigeria, right? What happened this week? I mean, for most people, and that's the essence of this live sessions, bearing in mind also that when you talk about central bank holding rates, it's the same thing as the same spirit as the Fed's holding rates, or the English, what's the ECB, European Central Bank holding rates. It's the same thing. When I say the same thing, I mean it's the same logic. The same macroeconomic environment makes them make the same, gives them the same response, right? So that even if you are not in Nigeria, there's an understanding to these things that makes you read your own economy. That's the idea. Now, the central bank holds interest rate flat at 27.5 for 7 straight times. Now, in my newsletter to the community, I just said the first thing I said was they have no choice. Why are they holding interest rates so high? Why? Because they are trying to establish stability. More than any other thing, the goal of the central bank is price stability. That is, if they, when you do economics 101, what's the central bank supposed to do? Ensure that prices are stable. That's the first thing. So you see what happened the past 2 years in Nigeria where prices were just jumping. That is a massive failure on the part of the central bank. That is like the worst nightmare for central bankers, that prices are just haywire. Now, what did they do to stabilize things? And I mean, if you're in Nigeria, you agree that things have stabilized a whole lot, right? In terms of it's not as wild as you come and buy something today is 10 naira, the next thing there is 13, the next day, and I literally mean the next day. It, like just back to back and just keeps jumping, right? And people are telling, if I give you a price in the morning, it might not be the same price in the evening. It was that bad. Now, what you have seen is that there's been some stability. Now, the reason for that stability is a major part of that reason is this interest rate that they packed up so high. Why? Because when money becomes so expensive, right, it slows down borrowing, right? Because it's so expensive to borrow, meaning that it, all things being equal, it slows down the amount of cash in circulation. That's one. Another thing that it does, because money is expensive, that it slows down speculation on FX. Now, if you are in Nigeria, you know that FX has been the major driver of of inflation. So two things, FX and fuel prices. So we have to thank Uncle Dangote for this price stability that we are seeing right now, because fuel prices have stabilized because we are now trading in naira for our fuel. So it has given us some energy security, and then FX has started coming down. Now, the central bank, ideally, you would say that you want rates to come down so that it be cheaper to borrow, so that entrepreneurs, business owners, blah, 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 can take advantage of it and grow their businesses. Yes. However, I'm sure if you've looked at our news in the past, we've talked about the amount of money in supply, right? There's so much money in supply. With the amount of money in supply, they're like, go and use all the money in supply you need. Let's not create more by lending, right? Let's try and slow it down from that angle, right? So, what is the central bank trying to do in summary? They're trying to keep things as stable as possible. And so, if for the things that are not improving, right, inflation is not necessarily improving, but at least it is stable. That is where we want to be. So, in my own opinion, even though people are clamoring for lower rates, I do not think that. Okay, so to add to it, the central bank is actually targeting inflation. They're saying that until inflation gets to a certain level, they are not coming down with these rates. Now, can it come down? Yes, it can. There's something called base rates. So if inflation was particularly high between, it's year on year, it was particularly high between 2024 into 2025, but it stabilizes. What you find is that by the time you get to 2026 and you're comparing, the inflation rate will start coming down. It's called base effect, right? So with that, you can see how there's a case for things slowing down, inflation slowing down in 2026, and then the rates can start coming down. However, if you're an investor, you realize that all those 20% you were seeing on bonds, 25, 24, 23, and treasury bills effective yield, you see it's coming down. People are not waiting, they are buying. So don't say, I mean, if you see the stock market now, stock market is going higher and higher, right? But for a lot of people, they were watching. Are you sure? 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 You are still asking, are you sure? And GTV has crossed 100 naira, right? So if that is the case, if you were watching stock market and you slept on it, the bonds market is about to move also. Don't sleep on it. In the Money with Club, well, we have access to the bonds market directly, not just the savings bonds, and we do bond investment. Don't sleep on it. The fact is that it's not as high as it was in January, but it's still very good yields, right? Extremely good yields, such that you shouldn't be sleeping on it. Yeah. I've given you a deal for the deal, something to execute in the next week. But anyways, thank you so much. Don't forget to check out. Okay, let me drop the link to the summer camp here. If you are just joining in, I mentioned that we're having a summer camp. It's for 16 to 21-year-olds. I'm dropping it in the chat so everyone should see it from wherever they are. Okay, see it on YouTube. You can see it on YouTube, and then follow me on social media. You would see it there. Anyways, but have a beautiful rest of the week. Thank you to everyone. I see people, but not many people engaged